bigger deal here is what it says about the field of exercise science in general.
Can't agree more with you, because if you really think about it, Dr. Mike is a victim here. Like all he did was pay to go to school to get his PhD, get taught how to do a PhD, write his thesis, and get his thesis approved.
Bringing you a reasoned approach to health and fitness. This is the Phi Life Podcast.
Welcome to the Phi Life Podcast. I'm John Barbin. With me is Brad Pilon, and today we're going to talk about this takedown Solomon Nelson did on Mike Israetel's PhD. So I don't really follow either of these people. I know Israetel's pretty popular, I guess, and he has a big following, and he mostly talks about, I guess, just building muscle. I'm not super informed about his channel.
Health and fitness dude. Yeah.
All right. So
Solomon guy, that was the first time I've ever seen anything from him. It's polished, so it's obviously he does this for a living, right? The quality of the video is great. His tone, etc. He is definitely a speaker. So I imagine these are two fairly well-known, fairly pro podcaster YouTubers kind of going at it.
Something like that, it seems like. So I heard about this through somebody else that I follow, and then
you sent it to me.
Then I sent it to you, and I thought, okay, is it really that bad? And I started watching it, and halfway through, I thought, my God, this is terrible. Yeah. And basically, if you've seen it, it's just Solomon just takes down he takes down the PhD thesis. He just dissects it bit by bit, from grammar errors to statistical presentation errors, like just errors from front to back, to the point where it seems as though this thing was never even proofread. Like, I'm not sure anyone on his committee I don't think anyone read it. And if they did, they willingly overlooked I guess you could say petty little errors, as like formatting, all the way up to utter total misrepresentations and just so many mistakes in it.
Do we know how old it is?
2013.
As we said, okay, so 2013, some quick math. Okay, yeah. And then, I don't really have anything to say. I mean, so for some reason, it seems like Dr. Mike rubbed this Solomon guy the wrong way. And Dr. Mike's caricature online is one of a very pompous blowhard, right? And I'm sure it's a caricature. You know, everyone has an online persona, and what he does gets attention and works. So from a business point of view, I get it, but I could see by other people who are in academia how that could definitely rub them the wrong way. So then Solomon took it upon himself to find Dr. Mike's PhD thesis from 2013 and publicly review it and eviscerate the thesis. And I think he did a good job of a mediocre job. He did a job of not trying to make it an ad hominem attack on Dr. Mike, but it came pretty close at some points.
Well, yeah, I mean, so to me, the bigger deal here is what it says about the field of exercise science in general.
Yeah. Can't agree more with you, because if you really think about it, Dr. Mike is a victim here. Like all he did was pay to go to school to get his PhD, get taught how to do a PhD, write his thesis, and get his thesis approved. Right? Like, it's not like there's like, oh, we found out he paid off the advisors, or like, all the guy did was go to school to get his doctorate. Right? So if there's a problem with that doctorate, that does not lie on Dr. Mike. I mean, assuming he went through the normal channels and he had to defend his thesis and he had an advisory board, like, none of that's his fault. So really, it's a takedown of the academia and the state of health and fitness science.
Yeah. So you could say now he obviously uses his credential. From what I gather, he uses his credential to kind of draw authority to himself, and he has
paid a lot of bloody money to get that thing. And
I guess so. Yeah.
You know, like I know that Solomon was like, he uses his PhD to sell stuff. I'm like, that's kind of, you get a PhD in these days, a lot of it is a marketing platform. It's a way to let everybody know you're smart. It's to get jobs that require a PhD. Therefore, it's a way of elevating yourself above other people. That's That's what it's used for. And I know that might not be the essence of what it was meant to be, but it really is. So you know what? How many people's Twitter, I guess, X handles or Instagram handles are Dr. John or Dr. Brad or Dr. Mike? You know, it's everyone does it. So I don't think Mike's he's not being dishonest as those people who do it and they're not doctors, or, you know, they don't have a PhD or a medical degree. They have something else. But I'm not even going to fault him for that, because that's just sort of standard practice, right?
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. That's a good point. He's not being dishonest, but if you bother to look into it, you realize his PhD itself was kind of, you know, what's sad, it's kind of par for the, I don't want to say par for the course for the whole industry, but it obviously made it through an accredited academic institution. Yes. Some kind of advisor had to have been there, a principal investigator, some kind of committee. Apparently he had to defend this thing, and he had to, I'm assuming he had to do a proposal. It shouldn't, given the research question, like it's hardly a question. Yeah, it probably shouldn't even got past proposal in the first place, let alone all the way to where it ended up.
It was set up the way in Canada that would be. I'm not knocking. Geez, how do I word this out? Seem like an asshole. That would be the very typical setup of a graduate thesis.
I was just gonna say this seemed like a fourth year graduate paper, or maybe a 1 year coursework master's type review. This was kind of a review. That's all. I mean.
Yeah. This is, and again, not a knock on Dr. Mike. It's just we're trying to describe what it is relative to
This seemed like a graduate fourth year paper, graduate paper, kind of a first toe into doing a good lit review. Kind of what it looked like to me.
So before we dive deep into what our issues are with this, what it states about academia, the one thing I would have, you know, I'm asking a lot of this Solomon gentleman, but it would have been cool if he had pulled 2 or 3 other dissertations from 2013 in health and fitness and been like, oh, they're all like this, or these ones are excellent. How did this guys get through? Like, because that would have been telling as well.
Yeah, maybe even from the same department, let alone pulling from different departments. So you and I have extensive experience at multiple different institutions, either us being there or us knowing principal investigators, us being in studies ourselves. Yeah. And
funding studies in my case.
Yes. Yeah. You've been involved on the funding end of research. So we know some of this from right from the horse's mouth. We've either been doing the research or been in the research or funded the research. So in many cases, this stuff is, how do you say this? It's kind of like not that important, so it kind of doesn't matter how rigorous it is.
It is a very young science, what I say about nutrition all the time, and really exercise is even younger, that desperately wants to be legitimate the way a pure math or a pure chemistry is. And it accelerated that process, right? So, you know, all these other areas of study have hundreds of years behind it, and health nutrition is trying to catch up. And I think that they've skipped some steps along the way.
Yeah, that's a good point. Also, they're pulling from the same general funding pool as basically all other science research funding. So, do you really think the National Institutes of Health are interested in finding out if somebody can increase their bench press or can run a bit faster? Or are they going to put more money into diabetes research, heart disease research? Like, you're just not even getting much funding for this stuff anyways.
No. And if you are, this isn't something you and I just talked about recently, when the really obscure questions get answered, you know, so what's the proper way to, you know, pronate your arm for a certain exercise, then you got to question the legitimacy of that research, right? The more obscure, the more into the weeds in health and fitness the study is, the more you have to wonder, wait, who's doing this and why? Right? This isn't typically right now, the state of health and fitness, if you want a question like that answered, you'd have to be like in elderly patients. So you get that sarcopenia money coming in, right? That longevity money. Mm-hmm. But in terms of like, how can help a mid-20-year-old who wants to be the next Sam Sulek increase the insertion volume of his upper chest? Like, that's just, you have to automatically question the value of that research and how well it was done.
Yeah. So the fight for research dollars, to Brad's point, you have to try to bend this health or nutrition research to hopefully contribute or answer a much bigger question. Right. Like you said, something to do with people aging and losing muscle mass, or people aging and losing bone mass, or something clinical, like for real clinical.
So
and
if
your
John-
research sort of contributes to that pile.
Yeah. So if John submitted a proposal and he's like, I want to study the trapezius because I really want to see like how good of a tie-in I can get for bodybuilding, John's not getting funding. But if I say I want to study the trapezius because I want to see how it affects concussion rates in youth athletes, I would probably get funding, right? So it has to answer a broader, more important picture.
Yeah, more important
Picture.
question.
Paint.
And
Question. Thank you, Chief.
It has to be contributing to a more important question because mostly these are government agencies handing the money, and they're not handing the money over for your interest in increasing your squat strength. Like it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Even when we're talking about elite athletes, it just doesn't matter. You're not getting research funding to see how much harder a baseball pitcher can throw, or like now injury prevention. That's something
That huge career longevity, huge, right? Yeah.
But again, it's still no one cares as far as athletes go. This has to be injury prevention for the broader population.
Yeah.
So and then if we're gonna dip back into the specifics of his PhD just super quickly, it didn't seem like there was a novel question being answered. It was just sort of a review to confirm a few general links between body composition, strength, and then performance. So it was there was nothing novel about it anyways.
Right.
And to me, that's all indicative of a field where there's kind of like a joint understanding between the institutions and the people involved in these departments that we all kind of know we're in sort of a Fisher-Price Nerf version of a real science department. And yeah, we'll putz around and do some research, but all of it amounts to kind of nothing. And we're not really contributing to the larger body of academic research that contributes to something in the health sciences, like that really matters, that the government wants to put money into. So you're kind of just, you get to go play in your sandbox, but all of it kind of amounts to nothing. Those journals aren't like the most reputable journals. It's sort of, the whole thing just exists in a lane of what I would say is, if not a secondary science or even a pseudoscience, but it's not one of the primary sciences that's going to lead to, like we figured out a way to manage diabetes. We figured out a way to mitigate heart disease. Most exercise science that has any legitimate weight to it, especially with funding, it's all leading to energetics. It's all usually cardio-based. A lot of it's leading to heart disease prevention, like things that can translate clinically. Now, with that said, before I throw it over to you, most people won't do any of it anyways. Most people don't care what nutrition science says. They don't know what it says. They don't care what it says. Most people don't. We already know exercise is good for you, and you should just do a bunch of exercise. And it doesn't even matter what you do. It's likely going to be better for you than not. And no one will do that either. So slicing it finely into like specific movements and like the bench press here or the whatever there, we're way down a road that people are ignoring it overall, let alone getting to the specifics.
Yeah. And then when, to your point on funding, the problem is when funding does come in, it's probably coming from private sector, and then that's this big black mark on your research. So I do a study showing, hey, you know what? Caffeine actually has a positive effect on kids learning in school. Right. And then you're like, yeah, but it was funded by Red Bull. And I'm like, well, who else is going to fund this? Right. So, or, MuscleTech IF8 comes along and funds a creatine study. People are like, well, it was funded by MuscleTech. You're like, well, you expected the NIH to fund this? So funding is really difficult there, because when they do find funding, that automatically makes their research questionable. So it is a very difficult area to be in research for. And then something we can get into is that it's one of the most important parts of research is it applicable to the average person? And that's really hard to take health and fitness research and bring it into lay people, because, well, it gets studied once and they move on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's a really good point. So I was reviewing some papers on the replication problem in health and exercise science, and it's a real big problem. And now I'm sure this spans across many disciplines. I know it's in psychology and many of the social science disciplines. Like there's a full-on replication crisis where, meaning a paper that produced results, when another lab tries to replicate it, they can't get it. Like
so
it won't,
John
won't
does a
produce
study
result.
on, I don't know, a way to increase vertical jump. And I'm like, I'm going to replicate that exact same study. I should be able to get similar findings to John if I use the exact same methodology, right? So, and then what you would do from there is someone would see that John did the paper, I did it and kind of verified it. So now they might do it in a slightly different population. That's kind of how it branches out and works. Problem with health and fitness is it never freaking works, right?
No.
So, yeah.
And I think that's an indictment of academia overall. I can't name any one particular institution, but we know this happens in many places. The incentives are not there to bother even doing replication at all.
Well, because part of the knock against Mike Israetel's work is it was non-novel, right? It wasn't novel. So then if I'm like, for my research, I really want to see if John's research was right, people are like, no, do something more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there is a push away from it, it's a very important cog in the wheel of research and science.
Right. And journals typically want to publish something with a flashy result.
Yeah.
And researchers, mostly with a career focus, trying to get tenure, trying to secure more research funding, want to publish something that has a flashy headline, it has a positive result. So some of the papers I was looking at showed an unbelievable, like 80% positive results based on whatever the hypothesis was. Like that's like not possible. So this is the bottom drawer problem where halfway through a paper, if you realize nothing's going to happen, you just don't publish it.
Right.
And you only ever bring to publication the papers where you got sort of a headline worthy result. And so the journals are part of this problem. The institutions are part of this problem. To your point, if you came through academia under this paradigm, well, who are you to say, well, I think for the purity of the research, I think all of you are wrong.
Yeah.
And we're not actually doing real science here. Like we have firsthand knowledge of exercise physiology departments where a weight of evidence of research, all of it is based on the incorrect statistics. And when one person in that department bothered to really dig into the stats and use the stats consultants that you're supposed to use and determine that, oh yeah, those statistical methods can't even answer the questions those papers are purporting to answer. When that issue was brought to the department says, yeah, but that's just how everyone does it. That was it. That was the answer, which technically invalidates that entire field of research.
Because it's all built off each other, and that's the hard part, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I don't know if that same statistical lack of rigor exists in other departments, but I know for sure it exists in exercise science. And I still think partly because they know the consequences there's just no consequence. You're not this isn't going to lead to an error in, I don't know, a new innovation in anesthesia treatment where a bunch of people die on the operating table, or you've determined a new way to treat cancer and it doesn't work and people end up walking out of the hospital with a worse cancer than when they walked in. Something like that. Like the consequences here are sort of, okay, so maybe you just won't get a little stronger, or maybe you just won't jump a little higher if you do this protocol or not. So it's sort of like get your tenure, get your job in academia secured, and then putts around doing whatever. I don't know. What's the difference in like the stroke for a putter, a golf putt thing? Or I actually saw a paper about that. Is one of the ones they reviewed in this replication study. And I'm like, somebody's studying the technique on golf putt. Like, who's the hell is this for?
Yeah.
And
Golfers,
it just made me, right. But it just made me realize, they're kind of playing science, but they're not really doing science.
So I want to circle back now to Dr. Mike. And because the one thing we have to make clear is what did this prove, right? It doesn't prove he's not a smart dude. Could still be a smart guy, right? Mm-hmm. Doesn't prove he doesn't know what he's talking about in health and fitness. He might have really, really good ideas. So, in no way, and it was kind of saying like, look, you shouldn't be such a pompous ass just because your paper wasn't that good. But I mean, he's still got the doctorate degree. It's not his fault. And what it really opens up is the idea of, well, we should review 20 other health and fitness influencer doctors and what was theirs like, right? Is it maybe Dr. Mike Israetel's was the best dissertation of the group? We don't know, right? So it is definitely a takedown of the current state of academia in health and fitness, the fact that schools can maybe perceive a bit of paper mills now that kind of, everybody has a PhD these days, right? So, but that's kind of all it proved. It didn't prove that anything, and I don't know his content, but it doesn't prove that anything he said was wrong. It doesn't prove it's all right? But it doesn't really prove anything he said was incorrect. So we're just kind of left pointing out, that in the 2013, those 4 years, he published a meh paper, right? That at the time he was told it was not meh, it was good. And that's that. So I think if anything, it helps people who are worried, that feeling you want to get into health and fitness and you've got a bit of imposter syndrome. It's like, dude, everyone else is an imposter too, right? Like so you may as well just get in and do some good work, and don't worry if you have a PhD or a graduate degree or just a really good idea, right? Just roll with it. Like I don't know really what to take from.
Yeah, what are the takeaways from this? I think. Yeah. Okay, so I think one of them, I know for sure this is a reflection of the poor quality in health exercise science among many institutions. And these institutions, it doesn't have to just be the one Israetel went to. These could be ones that you're like, oh man, those are some of the best in the world. Crappy research can come out of anywhere.
Absolutely.
And I think that's partly because of what I've been saying is it's not a science that matters, really. It just doesn't matter if someone can jump higher or run faster. Like, it doesn't contribute. Given where the research dollars come from, it's just not an important question to answer. Whether or not it's even novel, it's just still not important to answer for that dollar to be allocated there versus diabetes research, Alzheimer's research. Like, that's where that money should be going. Yeah. And then to Brad's point, if a private industry funds it, the question comes up, well, that's biased because this is a product that wants to show that it works. So then there's no way out of this one for exercise science.
No.
Okay, so that's one of the issues. I think the thing that's getting people up in arms is that apparently this guy points out routinely that he has a PhD, and that's partly why you should follow him. Now, then I've heard a rebuttal saying most of it's tongue in cheek, and he's kind of being facetious about it.
Yeah, but also everybody who has a PhD does that online, right? Like not everyone. Sorry, a majority of people do it, right?
If you have it, you can do it, and that can only kind of work if the viewer themselves has never been to grad school, doesn't have the confidence to critique whether or not someone with a PhD is worth listening to. So, like, neither of us have a PhD. I started one and stopped, and I thought, I don't want to do this bullshit. And it's just the publisher perish model. Like, once I really saw what it was all about, I thought, oh, I'm out. This is not a life I want. And most of our core group of friends all have PhDs, basically in exercise science, right?
Yeah.
Physiology, neuroscience. So but we know the life they live, and that just means they went through the process of doing the scientific rigor to get to the point where they have a tenure track job now that just leads down to more of that research. It doesn't mean if they just step out of their tiny lane, they're not an expert the next lane over.
I think that was something that is Solomon his first name or last name?
Solomon Nelson. Solomon's his first name.
So yeah, Solomon. Well, I think that's part of what maybe rubbed him the wrong way about Israetel is that he kept talking about how he was saying he's basically an expert in everything now because he has a PhD. But again, that's now you're just mad at the guy for being obnoxious online, which is, it's definitely a way to get followers and fans, and you can't knock it, right? Like you don't have to like it, but geez, he's not the only one, that's for sure. So
yeah. But
I would really be interested. All right, you started this. Grab another dissertation, right? And just like, is it just Dr. Mike? Are we singling him out here because again you find him obnoxious, or do you really want to point out that all of health and fitness is a house of cards, right? So yeah.
And then if you want to get back to what are the things he talks about online, I guess it's a lot to do with bodybuilding. I mean, he himself he's a
bodybuilding
recreational bodybuilder,
guy, I think. Yeah,
right. And I've seen him on a couple of bigger podcasts. So I've never really seen his channel, but I've seen other people interview him.
Okay.
And guys like Peter Attia, who's kind of mainstream longevity stuff. Peter Attia's channel is how I got to doing some preventative health stuff.
Right.
And I mean, Israetel openly admits that he's on 1,000 milligrams a week of testosterone. So his experience of exercise is not like a normal person's experience. He's experiencing exercise on massive amounts of anabolics. So regardless if he can look at let's say a client or a paper about people who aren't on anabolics, he actually doesn't know what that feels like. He just knows what it feels like to be on anabolics. And I maintain anything works when you're on anabolics. So you can kind of convince yourself of anything when you go into the gym and try it. And you're like, oh, that worked. And then you go into the gym and try something else. You're like, oh, that worked too. And then you try the next thing, and that works too. Because I was on anabolics during college, and anything you do works. You just get bigger and stronger and bigger and stronger. Your form can be sloppy. Your rationale of why you're doing it can kind of not even make sense.
Right.
Your rest interval, none of it. I mean, all of it works. So his personal experience, I would argue, can betray his critical evaluation of what might actually work for someone who's never touched anabolics.
I'm assuming he trains people, so he might have some experience that way. Know. Yeah.
But I can't imagine.
I don't want to jump into assuming, but yeah.
No, but if he's got millions of people watching, I doubt millions of people all are using steroids. Some of them are not on steroids. And so for the people who are not using steroids, your results are going to be very different than someone who is using. And someone who is using and has used their whole life kind of just doesn't really know what it's like to be not on steroids. Like I know you can still rationally look at someone and say, well, there's certain principles that should work, but you really don't know because you've never trained.
Your argument, it's not just more, it's an entirely different animal, and the training, there's different training rules, etc. Right? So because your point, not only does everything work, but I imagine, when you get back into the mass volume, I imagine when you're on, you can just do a lot more.
Well, you can do more volume. Yeah. You can do it at a higher intensity. You can.
So it's completely different.
You can do it at a more frequently. You can recover faster. Jeez. You can get by with weaker recovery or poorer recovery. So you can kind of go out and party and drink and then still hit the gym and still grow the next day. Whereas someone who's not using anabolics,
you're selling me pretty well.
Oh, they're great. Oh, they're great. They're great. So, but I gained more strength and size in like 5 or 6 months than I could ever do without it. Like I've never gotten. I've gone back down to the size I was before I ever used. Like I'm the same size now as I was in high school, but in college I was 60 pounds heavier than this, 65 pounds heavier. Yeah. So, and I could never push those weights. And I trained afterwards. Like it's been 20 years. I've been training consistently. Well, 25 years, whatever it is. It's 25 years, and I've never reached that strength ever since. So clearly there's something, and I wasn't 500-600 milligrams a week, here and there, just a few cycles, whatever I could afford. It was I did it really badly, but the results were enormous. So someone who's consistently on for years and years and years, whatever's going on in their body is so different than a natural person. So I guess to wrap the picture up, his physical look online is showing you like he's bigger than you. So it's worth listening to him. Everyone knows he's on stage. He admits he doesn't hide it.
No.
But the average person can look at him and say, well, he's still bigger than me, right? So he knows something I don't, or he's experienced something that I've never bench pressed 400 pounds. He has, right? Then on top of his size, he has the PhD, and you're like, well, I don't have a PhD. So he's got a higher degree of education than I do. He's physically bigger and stronger than I am. There's literally nothing I can say back to him that he can't look right back at me and saying, you're not as strong as I am, and you're also not as educated as I am.
Yeah, so I think the problem is he does that, and I think that's what, again, rubbed the Solomon guy the wrong way. And I don't, I wish I maybe watched more of his videos to be like, is he wrong about, in my opinion, about a lot of stuff or not? But I just feel like this had almost nothing to do with Mike. I think Solomon could have picked any random doctor, health and fitness person and be like, all right, let's see what their dissertation looked like. And I think it would be really cool for him to do that, like not stop at Mike as just like a personal vendetta, but be like, all right, I'm going to just randomly select people and see what is the true state of health and fitness. What are these PhDs coming out? I don't know. It would be cool to see. And
you mentioned Sam Sulek. He has a huge following, and he's just a young guy on a lot of steroids. Yeah. And he just throws himself out there. Apparently, I haven't ever listened to him. I've seen a couple.
Okay, you know what? That is one I have just recently. Okay. And guy's got a personality. I don't know what it is, but he talks exactly as if you were in the gym with him and he was just shooting the shit with you. And I think that's you just feel like you're there. And there's no real, again, no claims of expertise, no nothing. He just kind of explains what he does and why. It's entertaining. He's pure entertainment that way, and less preachy, I know best type of stuff.
Mm-hmm. It also could be that guys like Solomon Nelson are a little butthurt that maybe he's clean and natural. I just scanned some of his pictures. Maybe he's all natural. He doesn't look like much to shout about.
He's like a workout guy?
I don't know. There's very few pictures of him online. And I guess he's in good enough shape, but it's just not impressive. And it's almost like the wrestling, like WWE wrestling. Everybody knows it's choreographed, but you still get excited for who wins. Yeah. And it's like a shared, okay, we're all in on this. We all know it's a show, but I kind of want to be excited about who wins anyways, sort of thing. Right. So it's just an agreement on both sides. So when you watch someone like Sulek or Israetel, and they're definitely charismatic, it seems like, and it's a little bit self-deprecate, like you're like, oh, this guy's being genuine. They're not hiding the fact that they're on anabolics.
Yeah.
But at the same time, think about what you're doing. You're taking advice from a guy who's cranked to the gills. Why are you if you're not cranked, why are you listening to somebody who's cranked, PhD or not? Like it's sort of dumb to even do that if you're not also on steroids. And anyone who is on steroids doesn't listen to anyone else on steroids because they're already growing like crazy.
If you're looking for a dissertation for your PhD and you want to do something that's new, novel, and useful, this would be it, right? It's just the training differences in people on versus off and how applicable they are. But I don't know if you could ever get
You're not going to get approval for that anyways.
But that would be useful though. Yeah. Right. So I guess just to wrap it up, it's basically it was a brutal takedown of health and fitness, not necessarily of Dr. Mike, in my opinion. And it kind of illustrates what you and I have been talking about for a while, which is the research isn't that good, and that you kind of have to, I don't know, just remember that as you're one of those people yelling, "Where's the research for health and fitness?" or "Show me the science," and you're like, "Well, it's not really there ish, right? It's still young."
It's young, and when you stop and really think about it, it's really hard to do a muscle building type. And I'd assume, given his persona, this is a lot to do with building muscle, building strength. And that's the sort of research that's almost impossible to do, because how do you, A, standardize the workouts, B, standardize the form, standardize the effort, and to build muscle and strength, we all know this takes years. It doesn't take weeks. Doesn't take months. It takes years to actually see a real result. So any of the muscle building or strength gaining research you're going to see is 12 weeks or 16 weeks. And even then it's hard to standardize it. But to see true results, the type of results guys online who land on Israetel or Sulak or somebody else, they're looking for, they're starting to train probably in their teens, early 20s. And you're just going to go years and years and years. There is no 6-year-long research on training. It doesn't exist. That would be an impossible thing to study, like in a controlled randomized environment. Yeah. So if any of it, most of it's just anecdotal, just people reporting on how it went. So from that standpoint, anyone's opinion is just as valid as anyone else's, because there is no paper to say, well, in this 10-year-long double-blind randomized trial, this exact workout produced better results than that workout. And that doesn't exist. But
and we don't even have to get into what better means. Yeah. So
Well, no. Yeah. Anyways, so it's I don't know. It was ugly, but to Brad's point, there's probably a bunch of other theses out there that are just as ugly. Yeah. And it's more an indictment of this field of research, which I maintain is pseudoscientific at best. Same with nutrition. I mean, that will be a whole nother topic. It's just fraught with problems. It can't be replicated. Oh, another thing is researchers don't bother sharing their data. I think they kind of know.
Methods, especially, right? Like they
don't share their methods. They don't share their data. Like in a major replication study, only 14% of researchers were even willing to share their data.
Wow.
Like that's kind of tells you all you need to know. Like, are you kidding me? Like you're going to hide you already know your data's garbage. So, I don't think it's an indictment of him. It's just the high profile example of how bad exercise science actually is.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that's a downer note. I guess the uptick here is whatever you're doing and you're getting results, just keep doing it.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
I guarantee there's no research saying it's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I think it's a good place to leave it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, if you're still with us and you like the show, we'd appreciate a like and a subscribe. It helps us grow the channel. Yeah. All right. So for Brad Peelon, I'm John Barber, and that's your Phi Life Podcast.